We've already mentioned that one of the most fundamental classification systems for matter, according to chemists, is mixtures versus pure substances. So what is a pure substance? A pure substance is a chemical that has a constant composition. So for example, water is a pure substance and it has a constant composition. And what we mean by that, if we consider the formula for water, H2O, there are 2 hydrogen atoms for each oxygen atom always. So it has a constant composition. And that's unlike a mixture. For example, if we think of gasoline, when we go to the gas pump, there are several different types of gasoline because their compositions are different. And so gasoline is a mixture because it has a varying composition. Pure substances also have constant physical and chemical properties. So for example, pure water has a boiling point of 100 degrees Celsius at sea level and a density of 1 gram per milliliter at 4 degrees Celsius. So these properties are used to help identify pure substances, and they can also help us gauge the purity of chemicals. Another aspect of pure substances is they cannot be separated into different components by physical methods. And by physical methods, we mean freezing, boiling, filtration. So let's look at our 2 types of pure substances. A pure substance is either a compound or an element. And a compound is a substance formed from 2 or more different elements that are joined in a fixed ratio. So that's that fixed composition. Most compounds are actually molecules, and molecules are comprised of atoms that are linked together by chemical bonds to form a specific structure. Another type of compounds are known as salts or ionic compounds, and they are made of ions. So we'll look at the difference between ions and atoms a little bit later in this chapter. The other type of pure substance is an element, and an element is comprised of only one type of atom. And we'll look at that in more detail. What do we mean by one type of atom? We'll get to that later in this chapter. Elements are identified by their chemical symbol, and a chemical symbol always has one capital letter. And unlike compounds, where there are millions and millions of compounds, there are only approximately 100 elements, and they can all be found on the periodic table. So this symbol can help us identify whether something is an element or a compound. If we can't find something on the periodic table, for example, I don't see water on the periodic table, we know it's not an element. Or if we're looking at a symbol and we see only one capital letter, we can identify that substance as an element. Now, compounds don't have symbols, they have chemical formulas which show the which show the elements that comprise that compound. So let's look at the chemical formula for water. I've already mentioned this, but here's the chemical formula. We know that the elements that make up water are hydrogen and oxygen, and this chemical formula tells us there are 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. So we know that because this 2, the subscript, sub means below, refers to the hydrogen. So our subscripts are always to the right of the element that they refer to. Oxygen doesn't have a subscript, and that's because we do not write the subscript of 1. So water has a constant composition of 2 hydrogen atoms for each oxygen atom. Now, unlike elements, compounds can be decomposed to simpler substances through chemical methods. So not through physical, through chemical. So that means we can allow compounds to undergo a chemical change, and then they can be decomposed to simpler chemicals. So let's take a look at the process of decomposing water through a chemical process to the elements that make it up, oxygen and hydrogen. If we have pure water and we apply an electrical current to it, as in this situation, that electrical current is being supplied by a battery, water will decompose into the elements that make it up. And we can tell by looking at the symbol that this is an element because there's one capital letter. There is a 2 here because the most stable form of oxygen is as a molecule with 2 atoms in it, and the same goes for hydrogen. So compounds can be decomposed into simpler substances through chemical means.